Vivi is arguably the heart of the Final Fantasy IX party, but does the little black mage also drive the plot forward in many situations? Let's observe what would happen to the game if Vivi was never born. Perhaps the Vivi prototype was never created in the first place, or Quan never found him and Vivi died after falling off the cargo ship. Regardless of what happened, for today's video's purposes, Vivi might as well never have existed. Vivi never gets involved, but the plot to kidnap Princess Garnet still goes on as it does. The theater ship crashes in the evil forest with Tantalus, Garnet, and Steiner. Even without Vivi around, we can assume the group make it out of the forest, leaving Blank behind. Sure, Steiner would be less happy about the team, but otherwise things wouldn't be too different yet, as Garnet still wants to get to Lindblum, and neither Steiner nor Zidane are going to leave her side. The party will unfortunately miss out on a few ultra-cool treasures in the ice cavern. Yeah, pun intended. But it isn't really until we get to Dali when things start going wildly different. The plot in Dali is really driven by Vivi's kidnapping. Without Vivi, it's likely the party will simply note the strangeness of the village and move on. Steiner would object, of course, trying to bring Garnet to the cargo ship heading for Alexandria, but without reason to further investigate the ship or the cargo, Brane's Black Mage army stays undiscovered, for now. Instead, the group continues their journey by taking the Buckmeyer cable cars from South Gate. How did they get a coveted gate pass? Perhaps the mayor of Dali gave them one to get rid of the outsiders. Regardless, the cable car takes the party to Lindblum via Bowden Gate, and without much issue they make it to Lindblum proper. This route would add an extra day of travel to the party, but further events would negate this. On the other hand, South Gate would never be destroyed. The late arrival would likely not affect things too much, as we can assume Zidane still meets up with Freya, and they would all still take part in the Festival of the Hunt, without Vivi of course. Alexandria's attack on Bermesia would bring the timeline back to as it was. On the way to Bermesia, the party would finally meet the Black Mages, so they would know them as a plot point for later. They wouldn't be aware of the possible sentience of the puppets until meeting them in their village later on though. Nothing would really differ from how things go canonically. In fact, we can fast forward all the way to the Black Mage village and Conde Petit, where unfortunately Quina would have to stay single, not being able to marry Vivi. Interactions with the Black Mages in the village would likely be somewhat different, but the party members' compassion would probably still keep things going quite normally, though they would possibly not learn so much about the Black Mages. We can notice Vivi doesn't actually push the story in one way or the other in a manner that someone else wouldn't do in his absence. Perhaps without Vivi, the party would have trouble defeating the four Guardians, but surely Steiner can just solo Tiamat by going into trance and smacking the dragon real hard. Vivi's words of encouragement to Zidane were important on Terra, but they weren't exactly the ones to snap him out of it all. Kuja would still be eventually defeated and the world would be at peace. The party would have succeeded in their quest with or without Vivi. Perhaps a certain bit of glue would be missing from the group, but otherwise not much would be different. At least South Gate would still be fine. I don't believe this means Vivi is an inconsequential character. The Black Mage is beloved for a reason beyond just being small and cute. Vivi's contribution to the game is more emotional, and his story is more personal. It can be safely removed from the game without affecting the larger-than-life events, but it would still leave Final Fantasy IX hollow. Vivi's story is an important factor in the main themes of life, death, and identity in the game. Vivi is there to give us the small perspective, the point of view of a child struggling to learn about mortality and forced to face it himself. The game's ending wouldn't be quite as poignant without Vivi's final narration, having accepted his death, as short as his life was. This all is, of course, just my interpretation of how events would play out. What do you think? Do you think Vivi's role is more important to the greater picture? Do you think Southgate would still get blown up? Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.